Most men don't realize they're with the wrong woman until the damage is already done. Not because they're naive, not because they're weak, but because the damage doesn't arrive all at once. It shows up quietly. You give a little more. You apologize a little faster. You explain yourself a little longer. Somewhere along the way, you stop feeling like a man and start feeling like a problem that needs fixing. And the most dangerous part? You tell yourself this is normal. That love requires patience. That if you just show up better, she'll finally meet you there. Here's the truth most men don't want to hear. The issue isn't that you're not enough. The issue is that you're investing your strength in the wrong place. Because the wrong woman doesn't destroy you loudly. She drains you quietly. There are clear signs when this is happening, but most men rationalize them away because facing the truth feels riskier than staying uncomfortable. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 5 signs that reveal when you're in a relationship with the wrong woman. This isn't about blaming women or playing the victim. It's about helping you recognize patterns, protect your self-respect, and take your power back. If you're ready to hear the truth without sugarcoating it, hit like. And subscribe if you don't want to repeat the same mistake in your next relationship. Most men who end up with the wrong woman aren't weak. They're loyal. To an idea, to a future, to the version of her they keep hoping will show up if they just try a little harder. That's the part no one talks about. You didn't stay because you were blind. You stayed because you believed effort meant something. You believed consistency would be rewarded. You believed love was something you could earn by showing up better, calmer, more patient. And that belief is exactly where the trap begins. Men are wired to invest. When something matters, you don't run at the first sign of resistance. You lean in. You try to fix what's broken. You adjust. You take responsibility. In a healthy relationship, that instinct builds trust. In the wrong one, it becomes leverage. Because when a woman senses that you're more committed to the outcome than she is, your effort stops being appreciated and starts being used. This is where manipulation quietly replaces connection. You tell yourself the tension is temporary. You explain away the disrespect. You reinterpret cold behavior as stress, distance as mood, control as strong personality. And every time you do that, you move one step further away from your own center. Not because she demanded it outright, but because you volunteered it in the name of hope. The most dangerous thought a man can have in the wrong relationship is this: if I just try harder, she'll change. That sentence keeps men stuck longer than any argument ever could. It turns red flags into challenges. It turns patterns into exceptions. And it trains you to override your instincts in favor of fantasy. Here's the shift you need to make before anything else. Relationships don't improve because one person sacrifices themselves more intelligently. They improve when there is mutual respect, mutual effort, and mutual accountability. When those things are missing, no amount of patience will create them. As we move forward, understand this. If you recognize yourself in what comes next, that's not coincidence. That's clarity finally catching up to what you've been feeling all along. Number 1, she uses sex, silence, or drama to control you. When intimacy becomes conditional, you're no longer in a relationship. You're in a negotiation you never agreed to. This is often the first and most damaging sign you're with the wrong woman, and it hides in plain sight. She doesn't need to yell. She doesn't need to threaten. She controls the relationship by controlling your access to peace, closeness, and emotional stability. It usually starts with sex. Not openly, not maliciously, at least not at first. Affection flows when you comply. Distance appears when you don't. If you agree with her, she's warm. If you challenge her, she's suddenly not in the mood. Over time, your nervous system learns the pattern. Harmony is rewarded, disagreement is punished. Intimacy stops being about connection and turns into a lever. And once that happens, desire is replaced by anxiety. You're no longer choosing closeness, you're chasing relief. Then there's silence. This one is especially effective because it feels passive, even mature on the surface. She doesn't argue. She doesn't explain. She simply withdraws. Messages go unanswered. Calls are ignored. Questions are met with nothing. And in that silence, something subtle happens. You start scrambling. Not because you did something wrong, but because your emotional equilibrium now depends on her response. Silence becomes a way to make you chase clarity, reassurance, and forgiveness she never explicitly asked for. Drama completes the triangle. Small issues become big conflicts. Calm moments are disrupted right before important events. Emotional chaos shows up just often enough to keep you off balance. When a man is emotionally drained, he's easier to steer. He stops asserting. He starts appeasing. And every time you jump into damage control instead of holding your ground, the dynamic shifts further out of your favor. Here's the critical reframe. This isn't emotional volatility, it's strategy. Whether she's conscious of it or not doesn't change the outcome. The result is the same. You react. She dictates. You adjust. She retains control. And the cost adds up quickly. You lose your sense of leadership. You apologize just to restore peace. You suppress your truth to avoid another cycle. The relationship becomes something you manage instead of something you enjoy. Understand this clearly. Real intimacy doesn't require you to earn access through compliance. Real desire doesn't disappear when boundaries appear. The moment sex, silence, or chaos are used as tools of control, the relationship has already crossed a line it rarely comes back from. Number 2, she controls everything, and you let her. This one doesn't arrive like a takeover. It slips in quietly, disguised as preferences, opinions, and just trying to help. At first, it even feels flattering. She's decisive. She knows what she wants. You might tell yourself she's strong, organized, passionate. But control doesn't need to be loud to be absolute. It just needs to be consistent. It starts small. She suggests what you should wear. She questions how you spend your free time. She has opinions about your friends, your routines, your priorities. None of it seems serious enough to push back on. So you don't. You adjust. You compromise. You keep the peace. And without realizing it, you teach her something important, that your boundaries are flexible and your direction is negotiable. Over time, suggestions turn into expectations. Preferences turn into rules. She begins making decisions for you without asking, then acting surprised when you resist. When you do try to assert yourself, the response is predictable. Guilt, conflict, withdrawal of affection. The message is subtle but clear. Independence comes at a cost. Here's the psychological truth most men miss. People don't respect what they can easily override. When a woman feels she can steer your choices, your opinions, and your behavior with minimal resistance, attraction begins to erode. Not because you're wrong, but because leadership has been replaced with compliance. She stops seeing you as grounded and starts seeing you as manageable. And the more you accommodate, the worse it gets. You begin to second-guess your instincts. You ask for permission instead of making decisions. You shrink your world to avoid friction. All the while, she grows more critical, not less. Control doesn't create appreciation. It creates contempt. This dynamic is especially dangerous because it convinces you that standing up for yourself will make things worse, that asserting boundaries will push her away. So you stay quiet. You tell yourself it's not worth the fight. But every time you choose silence over self-respect, the balance shifts further. Here's the hard truth. A woman who needs to control you today will not admire you tomorrow. The version of you that bends to keep the relationship intact is the same version she eventually loses respect for. Control may keep her comfortable, but it will never make her attracted. If you recognize this pattern, understand what's really happening. You're not losing her because you're too strong. You're losing yourself because you're not standing firm. And once that happens, the relationship stops being a partnership and becomes a hierarchy, and you're not at the top. Number 3. Your gut knows something is wrong, but you ignore it. This is where most men quietly lose themselves. Not because the warning signs aren't there, but because listening to them would force a decision they're not ready to make. Your intuition speaks early, long before things completely fall apart. A strange unease, a sense that something doesn't add up. Moments where her words and actions don't align. You notice it, then you explain it away. You tell yourself you're overthinking. You label your discomfort as insecurity. You convince yourself trust means silence. And slowly, you begin to distrust the one signal designed to protect you, your own instincts. Here's the truth. A man's intuition isn't weak. It's suppressed, especially when hope is involved. Hope makes you generous with excuses. Hope makes you reinterpret disrespect as misunderstanding. Hope makes you stay quiet when every part of you knows something isn't right. Psychologically, this creates internal tension. You're holding two conflicting realities at once, what you feel and what you want to believe. To reduce that tension, you choose the version that hurts less in the moment. You stay, you rationalize, you wait. But the cost doesn't disappear. It compounds. Every time you catch her in a lie and let it slide, something shifts. Every time you feel uneasy and say nothing, the dynamic tilts further against you. She senses it. Not consciously, not maliciously, but she feels the absence of resistance. And when a woman realizes you won't trust your own judgment, she has even less reason to respect it. This is where self-betrayal begins. You stop asking real questions. You avoid conversations that might force clarity. You convince yourself that patience is strength, when in reality it's fear wearing a disciplined mask. Fear of being wrong. Fear of starting over. Fear of admitting that what you've invested in may never become what you hoped for. And here's the part most men don't see until it's too late. The more you ignore your instincts, the easier it becomes for someone else to dismiss them too. Silence doesn't create safety. It creates permission. Every unhealthy relationship follows the same pattern. It doesn't start with chaos. It starts the moment a man decides not to trust himself. From there, everything else is just a consequence. Number 4. She doesn't respect you. She only tolerates you. This is where many men get confused, because respect doesn't disappear all at once. It erodes quietly, through tone, behavior, and subtle dismissals that are easy to excuse if you don't know what you're looking at. She may still say she cares. She may still enjoy your company. But respect isn't measured by words. It's revealed through actions. A woman who respects you doesn't talk down to you. She doesn't correct you like a child or make you feel small for having an opinion. If every disagreement turns into her speaking over you, rolling her eyes, or dismissing what you say as irrelevant, that's not communication. That's superiority. And when one partner consistently positions themselves above the other, the relationship stops being equal. Public behavior makes this even clearer. Pay attention to how she treats you in front of others. Does she joke at your expense? Criticize you openly? Undermine you with sarcasm or flirtation just to see how much you'll tolerate? That's not playfulness. That's testing. She's gauging whether you'll check the behavior or absorb it. And every time you laugh it off to avoid tension, you teach her that your dignity is optional. Respect also shows up in how she values your time. A woman who respects you doesn't repeatedly cancel last minute, keep you waiting without explanation, or expect you to be available on demand while she remains unavailable to you. Time is the clearest signal of priority. When yours is treated as disposable, the message is simple. You are convenient, not valued. Boundaries are where respect either exists or collapses completely. If you clearly express what you're not comfortable with and she ignores it, minimizes it, or turns herself into the victim, that's not misunderstanding. That's disregard. A woman who respects you adjusts. A woman who doesn't will push, mock, or guilt you into backing down. Here's the truth most men avoid. Attraction can survive without respect for a while. Love cannot. When respect is missing, what remains isn't intimacy, it's tolerance. She stays because you're familiar, useful, or safe, not because she admires you, and admiration is everything. A woman wants to look up to the man she's with. When you allow belittlement, public disrespect, or boundary violations to slide, you don't preserve the relationship. You dismantle the very thing that could sustain it. A woman who doesn't respect you isn't building a future with you. She's waiting until something better comes along. Number 5. You feel more alone with her than without her. This is one of the most painful signs because it doesn't look dramatic from the outside. There are no explosive fights, no obvious betrayal, just a quiet, persistent emptiness that settles in when you're with her. And the truth is, being single can feel lonely. But feeling lonely while you're in a relationship cuts much deeper. You can be sitting right next to her, sharing the same space, even the same bed, and still feel completely disconnected. Conversations feel shallow or one-sided. When you open up, she brushes it off or tells you you're being dramatic. When you need support, she changes the subject or turns it back on you. Over time, you stop sharing what actually matters, not because you don't have feelings, but because you've learned they won't be received. Instead of encouragement, you get criticism. Instead of understanding, you get judgment. Every mistake is highlighted. Every effort is overlooked. The wrong woman doesn't build you up. She slowly wears you down. And when a relationship feels like a constant emotional battleground, you start associating closeness with exhaustion instead of safety. Then there's the pattern that hurts the most to admit. She's present when she needs something, absent when you do. Suddenly, she's warm when she wants reassurance, attention, or a favor. Suddenly, she's affectionate when it benefits her. But when you're struggling, when you need emotional availability, she's busy, tired, distant. That imbalance teaches you a dangerous lesson, that your needs are inconvenient while hers are urgent. This is emotional neglect, and it's far more damaging than conflict. Conflict at least acknowledges connection. Neglect tells you that your presence doesn't matter, that you're optional. And the longer you stay in that dynamic, the more disconnected you become, not just from her, but from yourself. Here's what most men eventually realize, often too late. A relationship is supposed to feel like a place you can rest, a place where your guard can drop. When being around her drains you more than being alone, that's not love, that's erosion. Someone who leaves you emotionally empty is not your home. She's a place you keep returning to out of habit, not fulfillment. And the cost of staying isn't just time, it's your peace, your energy, and your ability to feel close to anyone at all. When you step back and look at these signs together, something important becomes clear. They aren't random. They aren't isolated incidents. They form a system, a predictable pattern that slowly pulls a man out of his center and replaces clarity with confusion. It always begins with control, subtle at first. Intimacy becomes conditional. Silence becomes punishment. Drama keeps you reactive. From there, your autonomy starts to shrink. Decisions feel negotiated. Boundaries feel inconvenient. You adapt to avoid tension, not realizing you're slowly giving up your frame. Once that happens, respect erodes. And without respect, emotional connection can't survive. What's left is distance, loneliness, and a quiet sense that you're no longer fully seen. This is how men end up feeling trapped without being physically held in place. The hardest question isn't whether she's the wrong woman. It's why you're still there. Are you staying because there's real partnership and growth? Or because leaving would force you to face uncertainty, loss, and the discomfort of starting again? Many men confuse endurance with strength, but staying in a dynamic that drains you isn't resilience, it's avoidance. Here's the reframe you need to hear clearly. Recognizing these patterns doesn't mean hating women. It doesn't mean becoming closed off or cynical. It means protecting yourself. It means understanding that love without respect isn't love. It's dependency. And dependency always benefits the person with less to lose. When you recognize the system for what it is, the power dynamic shifts immediately. You stop internalizing blame. You stop negotiating your worth. You stop waiting for permission to feel secure. Awareness doesn't force a decision, but it restores your ability to make one from a grounded place instead of fear. This is where your power comes back. Not by arguing, not by convincing, but by choosing clarity over comfort. Whether that means setting firm boundaries or walking away entirely, the choice becomes yours again. And that's the difference between a man who feels trapped and a man who leads his own life. One is reacting to the situation in front of him. The other understands the pattern and refuses to be shaped by it any longer. Here's what all of this comes down to. The wrong woman doesn't destroy your life overnight. She doesn't need to. She drains you slowly. Your confidence first, then your peace, then your sense of self. One compromise at a time. One excuse at a time. Until one day you wake up and realize you've been surviving a relationship that was supposed to make you feel alive. And the hardest truth for most men to accept is this: staying didn't make you noble. It just made you smaller. There is nothing weak about wanting connection. There is nothing wrong with loyalty. But when loyalty costs you your self-respect, it stops being a virtue and becomes a liability. A relationship that requires you to silence yourself, shrink your boundaries, or constantly prove your worth is not love, it's erosion. Being alone can feel uncomfortable, but being alone and at peace will always be healthier than being with someone who makes you feel invisible, tolerated, or emotionally empty. One situation challenges you to grow. The other slowly teaches you to disappear. This isn't about bitterness. It's about clarity. The moment you stop romanticizing what's hurting you is the moment your power returns. You don't need to fight. You don't need to convince. You don't need closure from someone who never truly saw you. You just need the courage to choose yourself before there's nothing left to choose with. If this message hit closer than you expected, subscribe, not for motivation, but for clarity. Like this video if you're done lying to yourself about what you already feel. And leave a comment if you've recognized any of these signs in your own life. Not to complain, but to mark the moment you stopped ignoring the truth. Because the strongest men aren't the ones who endure the most. They're the ones who know when it's time to walk away.